you're going to have a synthesis, like a different synthesis rate if the DNA is bound or not. And then you have the degradation of the protein. And I'll point out here that this is a very simplified model of how these things actually happen. For example, we're not including the mRNA here. So it would be more accurate if we include a different species here. But I think we can look at a lot of the behaviors of this without including the RNA there. Okay. So then we end up describing the system with master equations, which is basically if you describe your system, the state of your system includes the binding state of the DNA. We're going to call it 1 here when it's unbound, and 0 here when it's bound, and the number of proteins. So your gene switch, your single gene is going to be described by the number of proteins and if the DNA is bound or not. So this is the probability. This P1 of NT is the probability of the gene being unbound and you having N proteins. Now, the master equation is a detailed balance equation of these probabilities over here. So it includes a bunch of terms. So, for example, these are the terms referring to the synthesis. And you have here, how does this probability change in time? You're going to have plus the probability of you coming from a synthesis happening in a state where you have a protein less, minus the probability of you leaving that state with another synthesis, right? So you say that specific state, how is that going to change in dt? You consider plus all the rates of going from other states into that one, minus the rates of you going from that state to other ones, okay? So this is what these terms are. This is the difference in synthesis, this is degradation, and you have the binding and binding ones here, okay? So this is the kind of equation you have. So and then you have
I think just out of curiosity, if you're doing that, if we're not using this equation, the integers only go becomes concentration goes with n plus 1. So when we have degradation, the concentration probably becomes important. That's why you got n plus 1 times.
Yeah, the degradation is proportional to the concentration of the protein. So
that is not the case when you have synthesis, right?
Hmm?
And that's not the case when you have synthesis or unbinding.
That's right. And binding is binding is going to depend on the protein that's regulating that. Okay, so and actually this is for n. So you actually have a whole set of these equations for all the values and.
And then h of np is a question. It just reminds that this can be a linear, quadratic, cubic, depend on the node.
Yeah, this is going to depend on how the protein binds with you. Yeah. So yeah, this age of this NP is the protein that's regulating over here, and depending on if you have binding monomers or dimers or any other kind of binding scenario, you're going to have a more complicated function of it. Now, someone asked me yesterday, and I was saying it's really hard to find these rates that you use for this kind of problem. And since up to this point over here, we're not really dealing with any specific system. We have some scale parameters that we use, and we're going to use in the talk to just describe some relevant information about the system. And that doesn't really, they cannot really depend on the rates themselves, which first of all we can really get them. So this AXAD over here is basically synthesis over degradation. That's just going to describe how many proteins you're going to have. This is the size of your system. How many proteins are you going to have? So if you have, this is basically the average. That's the average number of proteins that you're going to have under half maximal expression. Okay. So if the DNA is bound 50% of the time, that's the average number of proteins that you're going to end up with. Now, this one is unbinding over binding, and that's basically the equilibrium constant of the binding and binding of the protein to the DNA. Yeah. So that's just that's going to tell you how what percentage of the time the DNA is going to be bound or unbound. And then the last one is what we call the adiabaticity parameter. It describes how fast these binding and unbinding reactions are going to be compared to the synthesis degradation reaction. Because usually, especially with the deterministic methods that people usually use, people just consider this binding and unbinding reactions happen really fast, and then just average over the binding state of the DNA. Since we're considering binding and unbinding as dependent events, we're considering that with this parameter measure how fast it's going to be. So the deterministic limit would be when this omega is very big. Okay. When this active equilibrium here is here's the level of how strong the repression is. Well, actually, the one over that measures how strong the repression is going to be. So how strong the regulation is. So that's going to be again later. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff. This is the kind of system we're going to be seeing today. First, this is this one gene that regulates itself. And for this gene, with binding of monomers, on the steady state, we could find an analytical solution for this problem. But that's pretty much as far as we can go with analytical solutions. Then we're going to start talking about the toggle switch, which is the two genes that repress each other. It's a much more wider range of behaviors, and it has bistability and a lot of interesting things. But you already can't solve those equations exactly for this case. So then we have some numerically exact solutions we're going to be talking about too, that you can use for this system. Then anything bigger than this, your system gets too big, there's too many states. Then you use stochastic simulations. It's like Monte Carlo type stuff. Okay, so this is the analytical solution for the self-regulating gene. So there's those same master equations over here, and you notice that the binding over here is the binding of monomers, so it's proportional to the number of proteins, and it's the same, and over here is the same protein that the gene produces, right? So how do you solve the equations over here? We use these generating functions. These guys are
0 is bound, and 1 is unbound.
no, 1 is unbound and 0 is bound.
0 is bound.
Yeah.
Bound.
So alpha Z and beta Z. So alpha is the unbound state, and beta is the frequency bound state here. So it uses this generating functions over here. And what's the point of that? From these functions over here, you can get if you take the derivatives, if you get the expression of this alpha of Z and beta of Z, if you have this expression, you can take the derivative at z equals 0. The nth derivative at z equals 0 is going to give you the Pn of t. Yeah, so you can recover all the probabilities of the states from the derivative of this function. So if you plug this into the set of equations over here, you end up with two differential equations. Now, on the steady state, the ddt over here of alpha and delta is going to be 0. Then you can take one of these equations. You can, for example, isolate beta over here and plug it into this one, and then you'll end up with a second order differential equation that actually has a solution in the form of Kummer functions, which is a well-studied solution by this guy Kummer. This Kummer functions are well-studied. It's a series that is really hard to work with, but computational packages around have them there, so you can use them. So you get this Kummer function modulated by an exponential over here. So there you go, another solution. So this is a plot. This is the probability of having n proteins, and this is the ellipticity parameter that I was talking about. So when the binding is really fast, you have a high omega here, and you see only one peak in the distribution. Okay, but as the binding becomes slower, you get this peak started dragging over here, and then you end up with two peaks in the distribution. That's when the binding is slow. Because what happens when the binding is really slow? Your number of proteins is going to adjust to the binding state of your DNA. Okay. So say when the gene is bound, your number of proteins is going to adjust to that, to the low synthesis rate, is going to come over here. Then the gene gets bound, then it adjusts again to the unbound state of the DNA. And keep in mind that this is not really bistable. This is what we call bimodal. So because the system jumps from one peak to the other. But this can have some interesting effects, like the deterministic solution. That's called the Shea acres. That's the limit when the binding is really fast. It would be this dotted line over here. This is the probability that the gene is. There's the total probability that the gene is bound by number of proteins. And you see that this is for the binding really fast, and as the omega gets slower, the binding keeps getting slower. You see that this curve is different, deviates from the fast binding behavior. Okay, now let's talk about the toggle switch. So two genes that repress each other, talk about that, right? This system can, so if you have a lot, say a situation you only have a lot of protein A, you're going to be repressing gene B, so you're not going to have that much protein B. Therefore, protein B is not going to be able to repress gene A. Okay, so that's a stable solution, right? A lot of protein A and not much protein B. And the same can happen for protein B. Okay, and so you can have a stable situation. You have a lot of one protein and not much of the other, or the other way around. So then you can show by stability. Like this is a run in time of a simulation, and number of protein A and B over time, and you see that noise can make this system switch from one solution to the other. Right? And according to the parameters you use, this is a probability distribution. Okay, and it's going to depend on the parameters you use. But here is just use some that is going to show the four this over here has peaks in all four of the possible binding states scenarios, right? So, say when both genes are on, you can have the system producing a lot of both of the proteins. When both genes are off, you can have the system not having any of the proteins, and then a lot of one and not of the other, right? So we're going to be seeing a lot of this kind of plots. Okay, so now these are the numerically exact solutions that we can get. So if we get all those sets of master equations and put them in a matrix form, okay? So now this P of T over here is a vector that contains all the probabilities of all the states, right? And we write our set of master equations in this matrix form over here. So the DT of this vector containing all the states is going to be what we call a transition matrix acting on the same vector, okay? That's just the same description of the problem. Now
just to make clear, the vector stars will have P0 and P1 for no protein, P0 and P1 for one protein, P0 and P1 for two proteins.
That's for one gene, yeah. For the toggle states, you're going to have P00, P01, P10, P11 for N1 proteins and A proteins and B proteins. Right? So this if your system is big, in the toggle space, this is a very big matrix. But we can working with this matrix over here, we can get numerically exact solutions for this. This is well, here for the self-regulating. I'm not going to plot it for the toggle systems, but for the self-regulating gene, this is the kind of form that this matrix has, right? So here is the vector containing all of your proteins, all of your states. And here are all the rates of the transitions, right, acting on the vector. Then from here you can recover those master equations that we had in the beginning. You can see that the diagonal terms are all negative, right, because that's the rate of exiting the states. And the off-diagonal terms are all positive. That's the rates of getting into that state from other states. This is what the matrix looks like for the toggle switch. It has a lot of off-diagonal terms. It's a sparse matrix, but it has off-diagonal terms, so it's not always that easy to work with. Okay, but now using this description, say we can calculate this probability distribution. Say that if you want the steady state probability distributions, that's when the DDT of your vector is zero, right? It's the steady state. So that's pretty much an eigenvalue problem, right? This over here is the probability distribution of the steady state is going to be the first eigenvector of this matrix. And keep in mind that this matrix conserves probability. So if a matrix conserves probability and all the states in the system are connected, you're guaranteed to have only one. You're guaranteed to have one and only one zero eigenvalue. So the steady state probability distribution is the eigenvector corresponding to that eigenvalue. Right? Then these are the plots. This is number of protein A, number of protein B, and the probability. And this is for slow binding and binding, and until very fast binding and binding. And you can see just this is for the case of the self-regulating gene. You can see that for the slow binding and binding, you have these two modes of the distribution over here. Have this case where you have a lot of protein A and not much of protein B, and the other way around. Or you have this none of them. And as the binding and binding becomes faster, you can see that these peaks start merging like this.
So why do you have a merge? Why do you have a merge?
Because of the binding, when the binding and binding is fast, for this set of parameters, you jump between lots of protein A and low protein B to the other way around. You jump faster, so you keep switching back and forth. So that's why the peaks start coming together.
For a jump between states too fast compared with your production and degradation, right?
That's right.
You have an average in the end, or you're starting to average between two peaks?
Yeah, well, in this case, it just had transitions like really fast between the two peaks until it just stays in the middle of the jumping back and forth.
Could you remind me what the physical significance of omega is?
Yes, that's how we call the adiplasticity parameter. And imagine. Yeah. Okay. So omega is going to be your unbinding rate. Over the degradation rate, okay? So basically, it's just going to measure how fast the binding and unbinding is happening compared to the synthesis degradation. Yeah, and when your omega is high, that means that the binding and unbinding is really fast. And you can average over there, so you can average over the binding state. So you're just going to have an averaged out synthesis rate. Yeah? And then when omega is small, when omega is like around 1, that means that all the time scales in the problem are going to be approximately the same. And then when omega is small, then the binding and unbinding is really slow. And the number of proteins is going to adjust to the gene being bound or unbound. Yeah?
That's why you see the right basically. That's why 0.1. It's the
Yeah,
other thing
so-
going to produce a lot of one protein. Then you have a fluctuation to go because
Exactly. So this over here is when gene A is producing protein and gene D is not. Then say the gene A gets bound, that's going to cause protein D to go up, and then gene D is going to be unbound, and then it's going to jump to this one. But then at this jumping from one binding state to the other is slow over here, that's why you see two peaks. And over here is really fast, so you keep switching back and forth. So the peaks end up merging over there. So these are a lot of probability distributions for the case where you have binding monomers. Well, here, when you have the binding monomers, this over here is when the repression is if you go this way, is when the repression becomes stronger. Okay, this usually makes for better switches. By better switches, I mean where the two peaks are stable. Right? But on this,
that means the total number of proteins gets smaller, right? The average number of proteins gets smaller, right? X equilibrium is what? X adds the number of proteins.
X equilibrium is unbinding over binding. binding rate is way faster than the unbinding. So you have the DNA being bound most of the time. Okay, that usually stabilizes the situation where you have a lot of one protein and not much of the other one. But what happens if you have binding a monomer? And on the deterministic case, we can see that you can still we cannot find two solutions, right? And over here on the stochastic distribution, what happens is this: when you have the repression being really strong, you end up with both genes being shut down most of the time, and you get this really big peak at the 0, 0. And that's all. That's equivalent to the case that we're talking about when the protein gets extinct. Yeah. That's something we're doing right now. We're studying these peaks that you have at the boundary of your system where proteins get extinct. You can get these peaks in the boundary with that stochastic problems that you don't with the deterministic. Then with the dimers you for repressed system on the where the repression is really strong and the DNA is bound. It doesn't take that much protein for the DNA to be bound. You can see a bistable system over here where you get two peaks over here really nicely. And for any value of the adiabaticity parameter. But you still, when you for low values of the adiabaticity parameter, where this is not that repressed, you still see there's a big peak at the 0, 0. And then when the system is not that much repressed, when you would need a lot of proteins to get the DNA bound, most of the time you see only one peak in the middle here. That means that none of the proteins reach levels that are high enough to repress any of the genes, and you have both of the proteins being produced. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So do you think is this let's see if the situation is the gap and progress in the reactivity effect? So because the proteins bind to the gas, so there is a free-energy coupling of the state, and sometimes you have if those bind to a full sequence, then the fact that you have two monomers bound and the DNA increase the interaction among between the monomers or on that program or whatever. So I don't know. It probably would be the cooperativity term, but in this case, not only cooperativity between the two monomers, but also because you have a free energy coupling. Sometimes, I mean, because what happens, I mean, that's a situation that it may affect a lot the unbinding rate. So if you have only the monomer, if you dissociate very fast, but once there is this.
If you're talking about
coupling,
the proteins binding to each other, that's the comparativity over here. But if the binding strength of the protein to the DNA is really high, then you can have that you can have the oligomer staying bound to the DNA for a while. That would correspond. That would correspond to what we call the non-adiabatic equilibrium, which is when the binding and unbinding is not that fast.
But there's another thing he's raising here, I think just to help, is that when you see that that N we put there is the size of the oligomer, that's why you have to be careful. That's a zero-order approximation. You can have DNA effects. So it's basically, you can have a dimer where the best U coefficient you have there may be 2.2 by the time you look at the data, because there's an additional cooperative that comes from the DNA interaction.
Okay, yeah.
So that N is
to take care of all the linkers. It's not only among between the monomers, but also.
So actually, basically, if you read, that's a very interesting comment that should be thrown to everybody, as I said, between the molecular and cellular. Daniel has not worked on that, but basically, a lot of people that work in the cell simulations, they just put a Hill coefficient, that's what you need for the reaction to occur. They look at their data and say, unless I have a Hill coefficient of 3 here, nothing works. And I think one of the interesting questions for our work now is, could you actually compute what a Hill coefficient was, but just by studying the interaction between the protein and the DNA? So that's some sort of this interface between cellular and molecular biophysics that's going to happen.
Usually the Hill coefficient is just a parameter that people fit.
And basically, right now it's very, if you look at the two areas in the papers, it looks like we're talking about two different communities. But when I discuss it here, what a complexity is a very interesting thing to do. Or this can become more interesting, basically. Can you challenge someone to modify your dimer and do some modification that affect the Hill coefficient in a cellular reaction? That's when the things will become really huge, right? So if you modify the protein here and affect if you're in a regime where the gene switch or doesn't switch, because you have been able to play with those parameters in there. So that's where we hope to go. I think tomorrow we're going to show the case of common sense, right? We're going to show the one thing, the real system they can compute.
We're going to show you a pretty good case of when people fit that parameter.
You can see how dirty the experiments are.
reliable.
How dirty the experiments are. And these are the best guy in the field, so you can see that there's a lot to go.
Okay, so this is a plot of this P10 here is gene A being unbound and gene B being bound, and gene A being bound and gene B being unbound. So that's what's being plotted over here is the probability that you're going to have one gene bound and the other one not. So it's the probability that you're going to be in one of those two peaks corresponding to the bistable solution. Okay, so if this gets to 1, that means that you really that you don't have both genes unbound or both genes bound. So this getting to 1 is a good indication of bistability, right? And what's in this axis over here is the strength of the regression, meaning going towards 0 is where you have stronger regression, meaning it takes less proteins to make the.
So stronger regression is small x.
It's small, yeah, it's small x. Okay, so and this different curves over here is different values of omega. So from really slow binding and binding to really fast binding and binding. So you can see for the case of dimers, you always, for stronger regression, whatever the speed of your binding and binding, you always end up going towards bistability in this graph system. Right? And for the case of monomers, not really. Yeah. Okay. No. Okay, so other things that you can do with the description of the system is in the matrix form is just solve this exactly. Okay, just solve this equation over here, and you're going to see that you can get a time-dependent solution to the problem by exponentiating this big transition matrix that you have. So it's going to be just the exponential of the matrix times your initial state. Yeah? And you can see, for example, over here, if you start in one of the peaks, how do you get to how does your probability changing time when you go to the other peak? So you can see from in the repressed system, what happens is your system has to fluctuate towards the origin over here and then jump to the other side. So you can see the other peak growing over here, and the transition happens through the origin over there. Just as and what this is over here is just a movie of this probability distribution changing. In the case where you put a sink over here, say you start over here where one of the peaks is, and if your system gets to this edge of the pyramid, it disappears over there. So this is probabilities. You can see it going through the origin. And it goes until there's no probability left. You consider the what you do is just, in this case, you just adjust your boundary conditions. So the probability over here, this is just set the probability over here to 0. Okay? So in this case, you have a matrix that doesn't conserve probability. Now, another thing is mean first passage time is what you use to calculate how stable this how stable these two peaks are. So, how long does it take for you to jump from one peak to the other? This switching times it's important because it's going to give you that's what really going to measure how if your system is truly bistable. Because what people understand for being bistable is that you have these two different solutions that you're actually the time that it takes for switching between these two solutions must be really long compared to any other time scale involved in the system, right? That's what a bistable system is. So, if you plot your probability distribution, there you have two peaks. Does that mean that the system is bistable? Not necessarily, right? Because maybe you can have these two peaks, but you just jump from one to the other really fast. That's not bistability. Okay, so if you calculate how long, so you have to know like how long it takes to jump from one peak to the other. So this is how this is calculated over here. This is over here is the probability of you being at position R and time t, given that you start with position R0 and time 0, right? So the probability that the system is still unreacted, we'll call react when the system jumps to the other peak, okay? So say you start one of the peaks. You're just seeing how long it takes to jump to the other peak, and if your system gets to the other peak, let's say you measure that time, and then it's over. You just measure that time, okay? So the probability that it's still unreacted, meaning still not in the other peak, is just the integral of this probability of the data position or at time t, right? And then the mean first passage time is going to be the integral of over time of this quantity over here. That's going to give you the mean time that it takes to switch to the other peak. Now, the boundary conditions, you're going to set reflective boundary conditions in all of your boundaries except for the boundary where the system reacts, right? And you're just going to set that probability to 0. So your system ends over there, okay? If you get over there, there's the same over there. We put that at the separators. The separators are diagonal, where the number of proteins is the same. So if you jump over that, you consider it to be the other peak. Okay? Now, this involves an integration over space and one over time. Okay, here this is a definition taken from the paper where this actually when they said all this theory. But here you basically integrate first in space and then in time. But you can go the other way around and integrate that probability over there first in time and then over space. And if you integrate this probability in time over here, that's just multiplying by the inverse of the matrix. Okay? So if you calculate the inverse of the matrix, you can then sum, okay, in our case, where these variables are discrete, you just sum over all the A's and B's, the inverse of the matrix multiplied by your initial state. Yeah? And let's just keep in mind that now we have a sink at the separator up. We have a sink in one of the edges of our problem. So this matrix no longer conserves probability. So it does not have a zero eigenvalue. So it is an invariable matrix. Yeah. So then you can compute this first passage times, and here you just apply of the switching times over omega over here. This is omega growing. So this is for binding and binding going from slower to faster. This green curve is just the unbinding is 1 over the unbinding rate. So it's just to give you an idea of the time scales involved in the problem, and you have the time scales involved going way down, and then the switching time going up over here. And these other parts over there are simulations that show pretty good agreement. And so yeah, so switching time way longer than other time scales to by stability. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the kind of simulations that you do. Most of the simulation in this area is uses what's called the Gillespie algorithm. So the base of the simulation is the following thing. If you know how many proteins you have and the binding state of your DNA at any given time, you know what's the probability of each one of the possible reactions in the system to happen, right? You know the probability of another protein A or B being synthesized or being degraded, or of a binding or unbinding event to occur, okay? So basically what you do is at any given time you ask two questions. You ask what's most likely that what's the next reaction to happen? And you have all the probabilities of them happening. So what you do is you generate a random number and pick one of them accordingly. And then you ask how long will it take for this next reaction to happen? And then again you pick another random number and pick another time. You pick a time step accordingly. So then you add that time step to your time and update the system according to the reaction you picked. So then you do. So then if you keep doing this, you're just going to generate a trajectory in time of the system. Okay. And what you can do is you can run that for a long time, or run that many times, then average everything, and then you get an average behavior of your system. Okay. Okay. So that's how you run the simulations. So then you get these trajectories. This is a plot of a trajectory over the plot of the probability distribution. So this probability distribution is obtained by averaging lots and lots of these trajectories. Right? So here's just to show how your basically your trajectory is going to be on top of those. It's going to be where the peaks are, right? These are just those same three plots in the beginning. So, yeah.
So I think it's good to explain the background point plan. They most of the time one of the peaks, right? This trajectory.
Oh, this? Yeah. It's just that this peak's not all red. because this is a discrete quantity, right? So this is 0 protein, this line, and this line is 1 protein. But it stays most of the time over here then. But this is not very strong repression because then it switches to the middle here. We're going to have to that. Okay, so now here we can look at how you switch from one peak to the other. This is the spots over here are the following thing. This numbers of protein A and B, and this here 0, 1, and 2 is basically how many genes are on. And the bottom over here. In the bottom, so the bottom floor is when both genes are off, and the top floor over there is when both genes are on, and the middle is when one gene is on and the other gene is off. Of course, I have 2 situations there, so I just added both of them. Yeah? So this is when. From repression being strong, middle, and high. So here you see where when you have weak repression, that you usually stay with you have both genes on, and your trajectory is usually over here where both proteins are being expressed. Now, when you start making repression higher, you just stick to the edge over here. You can never have both proteins being expressed a lot, because if you you don't need that much protein to shut down the gene, so you just stick to the borders over here. And this is omega, from low to high omega. You can see that at low omega, you usually stay in one place. You don't really switch from binding state. And then when omega is around 1, you see that the time scale of switching the gene on and off, like each of these transitions over here corresponds to one gene being turned on or off, right? And this happens at the same time scale of the synthesis and regulation of the protein, right? And when the omega is really high, you just have these transitions happen really, really fast, right? Now, this is what I was talking about this switch being good or not, and about a system being bistable or bimodal. You can see that this over here, you have these 2 peaks over here, but you switch between them pretty quick, and this is not a very repressed system, and so you switch through the middle over here, right? The switching the switching over here happens by the gene that's bound being unbound, then you produce that protein, and you go through this state over here where both proteins are expressed, and then the other gene gets bound, and then you go there, right? This system over here, this is a really bistable switch, because the time that it takes to switch is way high, and it's really repressed, right? So what happens is, over here, one of the peaks, and even if the transitions between the binding states of the gene, they happen really fast, but you still stay over here. But then, by fluctuation, you end up near the origin over here, where you have very few of both of the proteins, and then you can switch to the other side there and end up over there. Right? So this is how this transition happens. This repressed system. Those are usually the good switches. Okay. Now, this just for fun. So, this is
They're good at that switch, no?
This is a
Bad switch.
yeah. This is a bad switch because there's stuff in the middle there. This is, so you see, this is where the binding and unbinding is slow. You can see that you stay on your peaks. Okay. All of these little worms over here are independent simulations of the system, plotted over the probability distribution. Right?
And you just keep a small window, right? Showing, right? That's why you're doing here. Why do you have this worm? This worm is sort of
These are just independent simulations running in time, right? So you see that here the binding and unbinding is slow. You just stay in
the
the
axis is a window of time, right?
Yeah. There's a window of time. So you see that they don't jump from peak to peak very often, right? And if you go slightly higher, that's omega over here, where the binding and unbinding is faster. You can see that they jump from peak to peak, or jump from binding state to binding state more often. Yeah? Now the same thing. Now the same thing for the other kind of plot. Just reminding you guys that on the bottom over here, it's both genes off. Over here, both genes on, and then the middle one off, one on. So when the little ones jump from one to the other, that means that they had a change in the binding state of the DNA. Yeah, the gene gets down or not. So here's for a slow binding and unbinding. They don't jump very much, and you can see how they say they're over here, then they come down, and then they go to one of the peaks, right? And then when they're here, they go up, and then they go to the middle, right? That means that when they're here, the gene that was unbound, gets unbound, and then both genes are unbound, so it jumps over here. And since both genes are unbound, it just migrates to the middle where both of the proteins are being expressed. Then,
sorry,
yes.
Why order? I mean, you're looking at some extension time, or is this distribution?
This?
Yeah, why order? I said really.
It's a window of
Okay,
time.
It's a window of time.
yeah, this curve of the probability distribution, right? And then that's just a piece of a trajectory.
Yes, right.
Going
so
in time.
over some window of time, right? Okay.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Nice.
So
Right.
as time goes by, you go to the next step, and
Right.
then it's like
Right.
it going back. So
Okay.
that's
Okay.
so it's just a
It's a
piece.
window of
piece
time.
Yeah, just a window of time.
So we have a window of time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And,
Run again.
so this is for a higher omega, they jump
Yeah.
way more often. Yeah. So both genes are unbound, and one gets bound, they go to another piece. Then over here, the gene that was bound gets unbound, and they go back up here. Okay. Yeah. That's all I have to show for today. Questions, please.
Go ahead, Kelly.
This might be a weird question, but does any of this depend on temperature at all? Does it kind of make any effect?
No. We don't take temperature in the
Rates,
but the rates, but we depend on rates. The rates of bonding and degradation, and maybe those rates are going to depend, but we don't. And yeah.
That is not used there, but the idea is you could in principle try to change these rates as a function of temperature and switch regimes. right? So that's one thing. So right now, I think what you saw was a bunch of tools to tell you how you can switch regime from the sync. Tomorrow, you're going to look at acute application, but the idea is you can do that. But if you're coming from the molecular world, you can now study a particular gene network. Believe you have a certain regime that you can actually modify that rate by an order of magnitude, by whatever, temperature, pH, whatever you can do, and then you say, can I actually now modulate, based on my knowledge at the molecular level, can I modulate cellular behavior? That's the direction to think about.
And I assume also in the cell, the cell will have a pretty good way of modulating its own temperature, and that reaction will probably occur at at fairly constant temperature inside the cell, right?
Yeah.
This structure. I actually think it's a very beautiful work in the sense that it really gives you the molecular resolution, although it's theoretical, that people seek to get in the experimental systems biology experiments. I have a couple of questions actually. If you can go first to the slides where you had the time-dependent probability. Yeah, there. Let's go back.
Yes.
One more.
One more.
Where you have the boundary condition. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What is J?
There's a current.
The current.
Yeah.
And it means then if I'm trying to.
That means by reflective you mean you're not gonna say you're in like a certain trajectory, right? Like your system's evolving toward that border over there. If you get there, you're not gonna keep going, and you're not gonna disappear. You're just gonna be sent back. It's a wall, right?
Okay. Then
more specifically, that just means the way you set your boundary conditions to set up your matrix is say you get to your maximum number of proteins. You don't. You consider that the probability of you having a synthesis is 0, and you consider that the probability of getting to that state from, say, like a degradation where you would be in a state with more protein is also 0. Okay, so the other probabilities involving going to or from states.
Yeah, but in practice, what it's saying is the following thing: if you have a typical number of proteins in a system, let's say the typical number is about 50 proteins in the system. Okay. If you do a real complete simulation, you can, in practice, have infinite proteins. Now, there's no computer that's going to invert an infinite by infinite matrix. So what you do, you have to put a boundary in the top. So if you have 50 proteins, I say the maximum number is 200. Right? So you limit the size of your matrix for the simulation, but then you have to put an end in the problem. So you go when you hit 200, you put a reflective boundary condition. That's not a real condition, but you're far enough that you're just saying.
You're just careful that the probabilities of any states around the boundary are going to be small anyway, so that doesn't really interfere.
Okay, I understand that now. Yeah. Can you go to the slide where you represented the probability as a function of, I think, omega and xq? You had a table essentially where you had your omega or w parameter with xq on the x and
this thing?
No, go to the one where actually this is it. Yeah. So in the representations like this, it's not actually obvious to me that xq and omega are necessarily independent. So if I understand, your omega is the unbinding rate over the degradation rate, and xq is a ratio between the unbinding and the binding of the protein. That's how you define it, right? So if xq is high, for instance, that means that the protein initially would not be bound in the first place. So degradation would likely not be observed if the protein, if the secondary protein was not even synthesized. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I must come here to interrupt your talk, and if xq tells me that, well, I am leaving the room more than I am entering, that means that it's not necessarily it doesn't necessarily make sense to talk about.
You're almost right. You're almost right, but in the end you're wrong. If I understand you. The problem is, the reason you can survive with Zomac with this one, independent of repression, is if you have a number of proteins, 50 proteins, the difference of being bound or unbound is I have 50 or 49. Because only one protein gets bound to DNA.
Concentration dependent.
Right?
That's
Only one protein gets bound to DNA. That's what you're asking. The depression, most of the proteins still can get destroyed out there. That's why, if you have just one protein, then you'll be totally right. If you got only one protein, so the protein is bound, now it's protected, cannot be degraded.
Yeah.
Right? That's why you can survive with this one. I think that's what you're asking.
Okay, yeah, it's just as a small addition also. So degradation does not necessarily, I mean, this one does not account of what degradation is called.
But that's why you put the various unbounded rate. But the unbounded rate tells you, okay, it could be divided by unbound, but the unbounded rate tells you that basically you start with a bound rate. The question is, are you degrading faster than the protein is going to get away? Because increasingly the protein has to bind and unbind. You have to do the full cycle. So the unbound is sort of a lower limit for that, right? Basically, this life is at least that number. After you bind, that's how long you're regulating the gene. So 1 over the unbinding rate is the typical time that you're regulating the gene. That's why you have this one there. So it's how long you're regulating the gene versus death, right?
Yeah.
So, may I ask a stupid question?
Please.
Okay, so you are in a situation of steady state, right? Of coupled reactions, right?
In this cases, yeah.
Yeah, in those cases. So, I think, on the other hand, you don't have a microscope system, right? I mean, something between microscope and macroscope, mesoscope maybe.
Okay.
So do you think, it seems that on size of the tail balance, I mean, is not obeyed, you know, because you just looking how the walls go up and how they go down. I mean, of course, those are trajectories, but I mean, so of course, this is not microscope. I mean, if you look over a microscope, there will be microscope reversibility in several reactions, like it should be. But on the other hand, you have coupled reactions, and
Yes.
and the tail balance for physicists are like God. So I don't know how to.
You can comment about the first one. The fact you don't have the tail balance makes